welcome to the Top Order podcast. It was finals day today for Stu, waking up on Monday morning. Was it going to be a euphoric hangover or the one that hurts until Tuesday? Unfortunately for the Black Caps, it is the latter. We're here to wrap up the New Zealand versus India final at a packed Dubai stadium in the Champions Trophy final. All coming up on the Top Order podcast. Stay tuned. Well, Lip, me and you on the pods this evening. Perhaps a good job. We've not got the full Kiwi contingent given the result, but a final at the Dubai Stadium. Let's be honest, it was filled with blue right to the brim almost. You could see some little pockets of Black Caps fans, but in their adopted home of the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, Dubai, India have got over the line with a clinical performance, which I'm sure we'll come on and talk about in a little bit more detail. But look, I guess I've got to come to you first, just for those, heart-wrenching reactions of someone who probably, 45 minutes or so ago has seen, a trophy attempt, fall short just at the final hurdle for the Black Caps. How are you feeling?
I feel a bit drained, Binksy. I mean, I guess staying up all night kind of does that to you a little bit, but I think it's more the emotional draining, to be honest. It was a game. I feel like it was a game that had all those little moments when I look back at it now, like in the immediate aftermath of it. There was a couple of drop chances. There were balls just going over fielders for 6. There's kind of the questions going through my head, like, could we got more out of the Phillips overs? But then you sort of go, well, this is a quality Indian side who's now won 23 from their last 24 matches at ICC tournaments. 2 titles, 1 final, 4 incredible spinners, a batting lineup that's got Ravindra Jadeja at 8. And you sort of think, well, we've actually fought pretty hard there. So, I don't know. It's hard to be completely disappointed, but anytime you get to a final and you think, actually, we were in with a sniff there, we could have got that. Could we have taken more chances? There's a lot of could we today, but no, I don't know. I mean, before I sort of keep rambling on, Binksy, how was it for you as a neutral? I'm quite interested in that because I think I can imagine the kind of game that played out. It might have been a bit of a grind for the neutral fan at times.
Yeah, I guess it reminded me, and I was trying to think of a sporting analogy. It probably reminded me of one of those Rocky fights in the sort of Rocky 2 and 3 films, probably, and even Rocky 4, my favorite with Ivan Drago, where there were long boxing matches and there were big periods of time where there was someone just sort of wearing the other one down, but not really putting in that sort of killer blow, I guess, throughout the course of the fight, if I can extend the analogy. But there were times when batting first, you were going okay with Rachin and Kane, even until you lost probably that 5th wicket. You were within cooey of, if someone had a really, really good innings, you might have kind of worked with some of those permutations of doubling your score after 30, or those kind of metrics that would have got you somewhere near 270, 280, which I think probably was about where you would have needed to be. And then similarly, I think with India, they gave you abilities to get back into the game, didn't they? You were always probably 1 wicket away from being 1 wicket away, if that makes sense. And I'm sure I've borrowed that phrase off Baldy. But yeah, there was that stage where if you could have just gone bang, bang, it might have been a little bit more nervous for India in that final stage. But yes, they would have liked to have probably won it with 3-4 overs to go, and ended up obviously doing it with an over or so to go. But yeah, pretty clinical from them. And I'm sure we'll come on and talk about him in a bit more detail. But for me, you can't underestimate KL Rahul's impact on this game and on this tournament. I'm pretty sure that's 3 out of 5 knocks where he's kind of finished not out to ice the innings for the Indians. So yeah, look, credit's got to go from them. But yeah, to just come back to that, that analogy of boxing for a sec, it really was the spinners that were throwing those punches for both sides today, wasn't it? And look, I thought, Santner, I thought Rachin, I thought Michael Bracewell bowled really, really well for New Zealand and kept you in touch. And interesting that that's what the commentators were saying as well. Where's the other New Zealand spin option? Are they going to go to Phillips? And then clearly, there was a period of the game where Varun and Kuldeep really, put pay to any sort of ambitions of New Zealand getting anywhere up near 280 to 300. But not the best game of cricket I think I've ever seen. But look, worthy spoils to the Indians on this occasion.
Yeah, look, I mean, you talk about Rocky. I'm not sure that the batters threw as many punches as that go on in those fights. But
absolutely not. It was bowlers throwing the punches today, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I mean, I don't know if we go right back to the game to the start. New Zealand wins the toss. We decide to bat, and I'm pretty excited there. I kind of thought.
Can I just interrupt, Slip, and ask you? I've done this when we've kind of had the pod before, and as the non-neutral in this with New Zealand, what were you thinking at the toss in terms of? We found out obviously overnight that Matt Henry was going to be unfit to play. So toss and selection. Is there anything you would have done differently in hindsight coming into the game? Nathan Smith just bowling a couple of overs, and obviously then batting down in the lower middle order. Would you have made any changes given the benefit of hindsight?
I was delighted when we won the toss and decided to bat. I thought that was absolutely the right decision. You want to take, this quality Indian spinners. You want to make sure that it's hard, isn't it? Because they're such a good chasing side. So you're sort of thinking, okay, well, in some ways you want to make them bat first and set a total. But we saw what happened in that first game in Dubai. We've seen what the Indian spinners have been able to do when they bowl second in these conditions. They're just so hard to hit. And so I thought, wonderful, we bat first, we take them out of the game as much as possible in that sense. But Henry was a huge blow. My heart sunk when that happened. I mean, he's been the leader of this seam attack in white ball cricket for a little while now, basically since Bolt has stepped out off the side there. So, it was a massive blow, the leading wicket taker in this tournament. And look, if we're going to fast forward again all the way to the end of the game, I think you look at that and you go, we're one bowler short. And, I totally understand Jasprit Bumrah was missing for India. They had their own, brilliant fast bowler who's sitting on the sidelines as well. But I think the Matt Henry blow really did hurt New Zealand today. And Nathan Smith comes in. I think it didn't really matter. Whoever came in was in these conditions going to have a minimal role. But the way that he comes in and gets hit around, it made for a difficult ask for those New Zealand spinners. And let's flip it back and kind of focus on those Indian spinners to start with, I think, because as you say, New Zealand got off to a really good start. I think that we're 69 for 1 after 10 overs, and even before that, I think we're 50 for none off 7. And so you're thinking, okay, well, at the start of the game, I'm thinking 260, 270 is kind of what I want here. 50 off 7, we're flying here. Maybe we can actually get 300. And Rachin's looking brilliant. That front press, pull shot, cut shots. He's starting to get into Shami, and you're thinking, here we go. And then, as you said, Varun Chakravarti, Kuldeep Yadav, kind of those 3 wickets really just, it hit the momentum so hard. And I don't know, I was starting to think when Rachin was really manipulating those seamers, I was thinking Rohit Sharma is on the back foot here. He was making a fielding change every single ball, it seemed like. But then as soon as the spinners came on, I thought, Rohit's use of them was absolutely brilliant. And the way he was able to go, okay, well, we want to pick up a wicket at one end. We want to keep it tight at the other end. Yeah, I just thought the way that they bowled and then the way that Rohit used them was really brilliant.
Yeah, and I think, Lip, just to build on that, I thought the fact that he went with Kuldeep and Varun rather than probably bringing Akshar in, which they've done previously in the tournament and has been a little bit of their game plan, they've kind of almost gone, we know probably out of Akshar we're going to get, really good economy and perhaps tie the batters down. But he almost kind of, when you've got two aces in the hole and two spinners that are genuine wicket taking options, it makes it a lot easier. But I think that, that ability for him to go right, Kuldeep and Varun, get me another pole. Look, you've got to give some credit to Kuldeep Yadav. He came in and did exactly what he needed to do, which was first ball, put the ball in the right area, and it did just sort of hurry Rachin a little bit, didn't it? And he got bowled off his combination of pad and then obviously stump. And then to then kind of go bang bang at that point as well was just that real, as you said, momentum sucker out of that innings. And Daryl Mitchell as well has struggled a little bit to get going, hasn't he? I think what's good is on his day, he knows he can probably catch up the strike rate, but he got too far behind again today, really. And whilst he got 60 odd, that really needed to be an 80 odd off 100 balls, and that's the difference, I think, from a scoring perspective. So again, credit to the way Rohit handled his attack to keep the squeeze on. At the end of the innings, though, Lip, you must have had a glimmer of hope. Michael Bracewell coming in, and I'd like to take a little bit of credit for that. I said in the Slack channel he was one too high, but he's come in and proved me wrong with valuable little, more than a cameo, a double cameo at the end of the innings to get a one-day international 50.
Oh yeah, he was excellent, and he's done that for New Zealand a few times. He's been a bit hit or miss with the bat. Like sometimes he'll come in and do that, look really, really good, score a really valuable innings, and other times he's come in and just fallen away. I guess that's part of being someone who bats at 6, 7, 8. That's sort of the life for those kind of players. But yeah, he did a brilliant job, and look, it seemed like when New Zealand got stuck. I mean, I wrote in my notes here, Daryl Mitchell's getting buried in a mountain of those little white dots, and he really sort of was. They were just getting stuck. They got so stuck through, I don't know, basically from as soon as they lost those 3 wickets to about the 35th over, it just seemed like they couldn't get out of this hole. And I don't know. I mean, on that, should they have taken more risks? I find it so hard with these spinners because they're brilliant bowlers. They really are. And it looked like that for Varun and Kuldeep, the New Zealand batters weren't reading them well enough to kind of come down the wicket and try and disrupt their length. They didn't know, which variations they were trying to bowl. And then you look at the other two, and Akshar and Jadeja use their speed so well, and they make it really hard to get down the wicket. And then Jadeja in particular, he bowls his overs in about 30 seconds. So you sort of, he's at you before you've even faced up. Daryl Mitchell had to pull away at one point. So, I don't quite know. I know that other teams would have gone harder, I think, at various times. I think that they wouldn't have let those bowlers bowl at them. But in saying that, when other teams have tried to do that, they've fallen, 20, 30 runs short anyway. And New Zealand kind of batted in a way that meant, well, we're just now going to try and get 250 and we think 250 is a competitive total. So I don't know. Should they have taken more risks?
Yeah, look, it's a difficult one to answer, Stu. I think what New Zealand have done, I think, really well in their one-day international cricket over the course of the last wee while is they've probably, and don't take this as a criticism, you've played a little bit of an old-fashioned method. You have probably consolidated a little bit more in the middle overs than, for example, in England, who have gone out and tried to probably keep the foot on the gas because, that their belief is you need this many runs. And they're prepared to probably get bowled out for 180 to try and search for 320. In a final, I think it was it's a difficult balance, isn't it? Do they go, well, we really need 280, 290 here. We are going to have to go probably a little bit earlier than we want. Or do we try and get ourselves in a position to do what you very nearly did, really, with with that partnership of Phillips and we just talked about it, Bracewell at the end. to be able to get to that, score. So look, I think it was pretty good game craft from New Zealand to soak up that pressure, even when there were some dot balls going, and put yourselves in a position to have something to bowl at. And hindsight's a beautiful thing. Yes, if one of those guys had gone a little bit earlier and got 20 off 10 balls in that period, it might be slightly different. But then again, you might have been in a position where you were 220 all out. And then it really is game over from there. So difficult, I think, to lose too much sleep over that decision making process, Stu.
Fair enough. And I mean, so you sort of think at 250, 255 or whatever it was, 254, you're sort of thinking, okay, like we're at least in this game. But then, I mean, maybe a word from you about Rohit Sharma, because when we think we're in the game and then it's 100 for none with Rohit in there on 60 and making the most of, you mentioned Nathan Smith, O'Rourke. He really cashed in that power play, made the most of it. I mean, in some ways, it was an innings that they mirrored each other in the way that they sort of built from the start. But if you look at it, basically that 100 partnership, New Zealand got a 50 partnership. India turns that into a 100 partnership, and it was Rohit who has struggled in this tournament. He's had a lot of criticism from Indian fans on our social media channels, sort of in our YouTube comments, people saying, he's done, he's all of this, and look, he comes through in the big game, and maybe people are upset about the way he went out after being, in such a good position, but to get India off to such a great start, and I think he was man of the match in the end. So yeah, fabulous effort for him, and we don't know well, I don't know what his future holds. I haven't seen any announcements, but obviously the three guys retired after the T20 World Cup win from T20s. Let's see what's going to happen for some of these Indian experienced players. But yeah, Rohit Sharma certainly put his stamp on this game.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and I think you alluded to it. We've seen a little bit of criticism, pressure, and it's not just been at Rohit Sharma over the course of the last 2 years. There's been question marks about Virat Kohli as well at times from the Indian fans, particularly with a plethora of younger players that they've got coming through. Jaiswal on the sidelines for this tournament. Rishabh Pant not even able to get into the side, and I think we talked a little bit at the top of the show about KL Rahul. And yeah, look, I think Rohit has captained pretty well throughout the course of this tournament. I think if England are looking for that blueprint of a captain who leads them in the way that I won't do anything, I won't ask you guys to do anything that I won't do myself. That's certainly what he has done at the top of the order in all three forms of the game. To be perfectly honest, I've said a lot of times I think he's one of the best three format openers that we've seen. And yes, he's had a lean trot leading into this, but what India needed today was they needed to take away those nerves with an opening stand, and that's exactly what they got today from Rohit Sharma. And yes, I'm sure he'll be really, really disappointed with perhaps the way he got out, but at that stage. They'd really knocked off a pretty decent portion of the chase and put themselves in a position for them to then do what you guys did and soaked up a bit of pressure. But you talked a little bit about where you'd got to after probably 17 or 18 overs. They'd surpassed that in 16 or 17 overs compared to your 20 odd, and it gave them that ability in the middle overs to really knock the ball around and do what they did to get that. Get that total knocked off in 49 overs. So yeah, fantastic from Rohit, fantastic from Virat Kohli earlier in the tournament as well. So I think what this gives is it gives India now some options to decide what they want to do over the course of the next cycle to the T20 World Cup, which is the next one, and then obviously building into 2027 for the 50 over stuff. And you wouldn't bet against one or both of those guys wanting to stick around and see that cycle through.
Yeah, yeah, you never know. I mean, as you say, they've both made important contributions at times through this tournament, and I think you mentioned it before that they set that platform, and what that did is it meant that for me watching on as a New Zealand fan, it always felt like we were one wicket behind.
Yes.
I mean, Glenn Phillips changes the match with that catch. Bracewell gets Kohli with the first ball of his spell. Rachin and Bracewell build those dots, and Rohit runs past one, and suddenly it's 122 for three, and you're thinking, okay, like suddenly we are back in this game from being completely out of it. But Shreyas and Akshar were afforded the time, I guess, to rebuild again. It crept up past 6 and over, but probably I would say the 31st to the 35th over was when I thought it started to slip away from New Zealand. They did a really nice job. They didn't do anything silly in that time, but they did a nice job of rotating the strike. And then Shreyas hits Phillips for six, and then next ball tries to do it again, and Kyle Jamieson puts it down, and you're sort of thinking, was that our chance? But we kept every time you kind of kept thinking, okay, our chance is gone now. Mitchell Santner comes on in the last kind of throw of the dice and goes, okay, well, we've got to bowl our guys now. We've got to bowl him and Bracewell, and he picks up Shreyas, and we pick up another wicket, and suddenly, you're sort of thinking, we can do this now. We're back in it. It's sort of almost the flip side of what happened in that T20 World Cup final for India. South Africa was in a position to win that. India fights back, but the person at the other end who we just couldn't get out, and who many people haven't been able to get out in this tournament, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, and maybe you want to touch on him again, is KL Rahul, because he's just been so calm in this tournament. And I think before the tournament, we were saying, geez, it's going to be hard to leave out Rishabh Pant. Looks like they're going to play KL, but Rishabh Pant is such a fantastic player. He's come back into form, was important in that T20 World Cup. What are they going to do here? But KL Rahul comes into the side, and it's proved the right decision, and he's been absolutely rock solid. And you look at the scores that he's got, he's not going to necessarily be the one that's up there in shining lights, but they would, without his contributions, they would not be holding this trophy and wearing those white jackets, I don't think.
No, absolutely, and I think, yeah, I'm sure I'll get some stick in the comments for this, but I think ODIs are his best format. I think as an international cricketer, I think average is very, very nearly 50 in the format. Strike rate, when you could probably compare it to some people that go boom boom. Not anything to write home about, but his consistency, he's kept really tidily as well. And I think, that's no mean feat with the spin attack that India have got. He's a pretty solid option behind the stumps as well. But I think has really found that sort of that niche, that mould, and a place for him to bat, and shows, I think, that in the ODI game you've got space for that guy that knows how to pace in innings, and probably how to get the best of the guys that are batting with him as well. So I think India have been very deliberate around the way they've used Akshar, to obviously give them sort of a right hand left hand combination early up in that middle order. So that does make it easy to knock the ball around in those middle overs when you've got a right and left hand. And KL Rahul's played brilliantly off that with whoever he's batting with, and has the ability for short periods to kind of then help a guy get in as well. So, he can open his shoulders, and he can take the pressure off a new batter by, hitting a couple of boundaries. But then as soon as that other guy has got in, he pulls back and goes into fourth gear and lets the other guy go in fifth gear where necessary. So look, I think he's been fantastic throughout the course of this tournament. Look, it's scary if you think about how many of this team might be able to stick around for another couple of years or so.
Oh yeah, and all the ones coming in behind. But
exactly.
Before we sort of congratulate India once again and sort of round out the show, I will give a shout out to Rachin again. Wins player of the
Player of the
tournament.
tournament, yeah.
Was I thought, looked $1 million again today. Obviously 200s in the earlier part of the tournament, but I think for me, this is going to sound silly because the batting obviously is the most important and what really stood out. But I was super impressed with his bowling in this tournament. I think that he's someone who originally, when he first came into the side, he came into the side as a spin bowling all rounder, batted 7. I think that was the way that they were trying to introduce him to the side, sort of take the pressure off him. I think we all knew that he was going to be more of a batter for New Zealand than a bowler. But the fact that we've been able to have Phillips, Ravindra, Santner, Bracewell all in the side, it makes a huge difference in terms of how we can manage the balance of the team, how we can, particularly in conditions such as Dubai, how we can manage the overs. We can, have options for Santner. So, yeah, I thought he was brilliant. And he bowled at some really difficult times and didn't, he doesn't seem overwhelmed or overawed by the big moments, and we've seen that with the way he goes about his batting. So, yeah, look, fantastic tournament for him. I mean, he said in his interview afterwards, the individual accolades, they don't mean as much when you don't get the final icing on the cake. I think, Mitchell Santner said the same thing when people have been praising his captaincy. But I think for us as New Zealand fans, as a team who, or particularly for me, I think I went into this tournament not really knowing who where we were at as a one-day side. And then you look at how these guys have played over the past 3 weeks, and I'm pretty encouraged because there's a lot of depth there, and there's a lot of guys that can contribute in a lot of different ways, and all seem to be comfortable stepping up in the big moments. So, yeah, as I said, huge praise to India. Huge disappointment to not win the title, but I think there are obviously a lot of positive signs to come out of it from a New Zealand point of view.
Yeah, look, my word on New Zealand, and I was thinking about this before the pod. I think, yeah, whilst Rachin will, quite rightly say that the individual accolades are meaningless when you don't win the trophy, they're probably not meaningless in terms of his bank balance because it kind of puts him in that international shop window. Obviously he's already got his franchise deals for the next wee while, but if he continues to perform like that, he's going to be someone that's really, really sought after on that franchise circuit. And, that's going to be a challenge for New Zealand, I think, a little bit like it's going to be for a number of countries to keep their best players playing as much three-format cricket as they possibly can. I think when you then look down the list, you've got Rachin, you've got probably still a little bit of Tom Latham, who I think has been really, really good. Glenn Phillips, Bracewell, Santner, and then your bowlers as well. You've got some young guys. Will O'Rourke, I think, is a bit of a rough diamond, needs a little bit of a polish, but yeah, I think he's going to be a fantastic performer. Carl Jamieson back to fitness as well. So I think, some positives there. I think probably the concern is Devon Conway, obviously out of form and out of the side at the moment. You probably need to get him back for 2 or 3 years because Kane can't go on forever. And let's hope that he does from a New Zealand perspective. But if he doesn't, I think really that middle order is where you lack a little bit moving forwards over the course of the next 2 years. We've talked about everybody in domestic cricket who should have been given a go has probably been given a go. I know you'll look at your black book and you'll tell me about a Plunkett Shield performance last week, I'm sure, from a youngster. But realistically, the depth pool isn't there. You need Conway to kind of come good, and you need need someone to take over that mantle from Kane. But broadly speaking, I think New Zealand can take a lot of positives out of their showing in this tournament. Because they absolutely deserve to be in the final. And look, though it pains me to say it, they absolutely deserve to get beaten by India today, who, we can talk all we want, I think, about the fact that they've done no travel. They've essentially had a home tournament, in their adopted stadium in Dubai. But that isn't anything that they could do anything about. Those were the cards that were given to them, and they've played them beautifully throughout the course of this tournament. They've assessed the conditions at that Dubai stadium really, really well, and have been clinical with their performances throughout the course of this ICC Champions Trophy.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, as you say, you can talk all you want about all that other stuff, but I think what really stands out is that stat that I mentioned up front of the show. India's won 23 out of 24 matches from the last three ICC tournaments, the 2023 World Cup. They won the T20 World Cup. They won the Champions Trophy now. And, they've had their struggles in this past 12 months from a test perspective. There's been a lot of back and forth about, what's going on with that test side. What happened against New Zealand, what happened at the border Gavaskar. There was pressure on Gautam Gambhir, on Rohit, on Kohli, in all corners. There's been a lot of questions about India and fans wondering what's going on. But this white ball side has been the thing that has just been so consistent. And yeah, they fully deserve. New Zealand had 2 shots at them in Dubai. We had an opportunity to learn from that first game. We had an opportunity to bat first and sort of control the game in our way today. And that India's just been too good, and we pushed them really, really hard, but they have found a way. And they think that some of them have talked about how that T20 World Cup was so important, because they've been a side in the past that have got to these big moments and not found a way. And then the T20 World Cup, they did do that. They came from a situation where it looked like they might not win. Jasprit Bumrah in that case turned that game. And then, they go on and win again today in a big moment. In sort of all of those 50-50s, were able to pull them off. So, yeah, huge credit to India. They're a dominant white ball side, and they deserve those white jackets as much as I would love for all the New Zealand boys to be wearing them today.
Absolutely. Well, Stu, we'll probably leave the podcast here for this evening. And yeah, just echo massive congratulations to the Indian team. I'm sure, as you say, hopefully there'll be a little bit of red wine flowing, and you never know, those white jackets might look a little bit worse for wear tomorrow morning. But yeah, they deserve a little bit of a celebration. And look, the cricket keeps coming thick and fast, doesn't it? So if you think about probably the next big thing on the agenda is a couple of weeks or so away, the start of IPL 2025. So that's going to be something we obviously cover on the Top Order podcast. So we will have our normal IPL preview show coming up pretty soon, as well as a little bit of a wrap up of what's been going on in the cricketing world whilst this Champions Trophy's been happening as well. So I'm sure we'll talk a little bit of the close of the New Zealand domestic season, the start of the English summer as well. So lots and lots of cricket coming up, and we will be back in your feed over the course of the next week or so, hopefully with all of us back on the pod from the Rachin opinion and our English contingent dialing in early on our Sunday mornings here as well, very, very soon. But for now, it's probably good night from me here in the UK. And Stu, I guess good morning from New Zealand, Monday morning in New Zealand. But we'll see you next time on the Top Order podcast. Good night.